It's now about 24 hours later, and this morning at 9 a.m., or early yesterday morning, I should say, at 9 a.m., I had my meeting with Reginald at 160 truck or driving school in Commerce, Georgia. And my wife, who's a lot better at research than I am, she researched a whole bunch, and she then said, you should research it too and find out what driving school you want to go to, if any, because it'd be one of those things that you should do because you're the one that's going to be doing it. And my wife is always right. So I said, okay, sure. Let me do some research. And the company that was the first one that she had mentioned, I didn't really feel anything in particular to them. And they didn't have great ratings at the Better Business Bureau and stuff. So my mom and grandfather weren't that interested in that. But, I know that the ratings of the Better Business Bureau can be paid for. So I'm not really ultra concerned with that. But what I did do is I looked up various different reviews, and the main ones that I saw that were on 160 spoke very highly. And usually pretty much regarding any trucking school is that if it doesn't have good ratings, it's usually because there's someone probably, or at least I have a suspicion in their reading of it, they're probably embellishing, and they probably aren't being completely accurate about some things. Like they make it out to be the trucking company's fault when they secure their place in a class, can't show up, and don't properly reschedule it. And of course, I don't know the situation, but it's when I see that kind of thing, I kind of take it with a grain of salt, because if it was something like they attended the school, had a great experience, but there was a couple of people that weren't nice or something, then I would say, okay. And if I saw it routinely, then maybe. But anyway, 160 stood out to me because believe me, there's a whole lot of trucking schools in Atlanta, but this one was in Commerce. And it's funny because kind of when I dialed in on it, I told my wife, she knew I was working. I was teaching some classes, and my wife called and made the appointment for me, which I appreciated. And it's funny because they started to ask her questions just to double check that, I would be eligible and whatever, that I have a driver's license, for example. And one of the questions they said was, well, the guy said, y'all live kind of far away. You okay driving up here? And when my wife told me that, I actually laughed, because you're not going to make it very long as a, commercial driver if you're afraid of driving. I mean, yes, granted, technically you're not being paid to drive a certain number of miles, but at the same time, you're going to be going to a school. So anyway, enough of that. I got up this morning and went to the school. I took my mom, because my mom has been very interested in this process too. And she was a beast mode type business lady back in the, probably like the 70s until she retired only a few years ago. She was very, very business minded, very good at what she did. And so bringing her along was fun, because we listened to the guy's pitch, and we showed up there. We got there about 15 minutes early, and Reginald was very nice. He brought us in, and it was a very clean environment. It was it didn't have stuff all over the place. It wasn't dirty at all or grimy. It was very nice. It looked like the place just opened. But he told us that that particular location had been open for 3 years, and 160 had multiple different locations, including one in Forest Park, which is down below the world's busiest airport, Atlanta, Fulton County. Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. That's at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. There's the Gen X in me coming out. Geez, they tore that thing down, 20 years ago? Anyway, so Reginald was nice. We came in there and we sat down, and he said, well, do you have any questions before we get going? I said, well, I started to ask a couple, and then I said after a couple of minutes, why don't you just go ahead and tell us what you were going to tell us? So he pulls out one sheet of paper and says, this is basically the information. And 160 Trucking School basically is 160 because there's 4 weeks of 40 hours a week courses. Now, some of the driving schools are 3 weeks. This one was 4, because what they do is they give you an extra week that they do in advance So that way you're studying and you're ready to get your learner's permit. Some other schools require you to have your learners before you start, because they just take you straight out at the very beginning and put you in trucks and start doing stuff. But 160 actually preps you for that. And here's the thing, the price is the same. So when I was pricing this thing out, basically to get a CDL Class A license in the state of Georgia, at least the schools I called, it was pretty much across the board $49.95. And there may be a couple of fees on top of that, but I did ask him, and he said, well, all there is a $200 fee. There's $50 Georgia State, what is a physical that the state of Georgia Department of Transportation requires you to take that basically shows that you're fit to drive a commercial vehicle on the road. And then there's a $150 testing fee. And that is the actual fee, he said, for the CDLA exam. I don't know if that's accurate. I didn't price it, but why would I question it? And I say that because I would be taking their truck. Maybe that's part of the course. Maybe it's actually, and I know this is probably a Google search away. All I have to do is Google a thing and it would tell me what the price is. But regardless, I don't really care, because I know that the overall price would be about $5,200. Or if I wanted to finance it, it'd be another $2,000. But they do something kind of cool. They don't require you to start paying back the loan like $100 a month or whatever it is until about 4 months after you graduate. That way, after you get your license, that way you start paying it back. And therefore, you would be essentially, working by that point and kind of caught up on your bills or whatever. So anyway, Reginald told me that, the first week is getting your permit. The second week is learning the workings, how to pass an inspection, basically. From there, they teach basic techniques, driving forward, driving backwards, and then they start teaching more advanced techniques about how to back up on an angle, right angle, right hand, left hand turns, that kind of thing. He started throwing out a bunch of other terms. I have no idea what that is. The thing is, though, I'm going into this without an ego because I don't know very much about trucks or cars or anything in general. When I see one, he's going to say, hey, look at this truck. And I'll say, oh yeah, look, cool. It has doors and wheels. My car has those. I know what those look like. I mean, I'm that clueless about it. Let the truth be known. But one thing I really do appreciate, I was kind of set up for this interview pretty well by watching a lot of YouTube content creators, a lot of the veterans out there that really explain the way things work at places like truck stops or I think it's called Fuel Island. And there's, and people were talking about the industry and talking about the difference between manual and automatic transmissions. And there was even some really talented young creators. I'm not going to name any of these creators because there's only two that I actually remember the name of. And the ones I found most helpful are the ones I don't remember the name of, unfortunately. But there's some young trucking guys that are talking about what it's like when they finally get paid their first checks and what those are looking like. And they talk a little bit about the incentives, whether it's safe driving or it's a sign-on bonus or something like that they get, or when they finally get out on the road for themselves, there's certain bonuses some places give, and they talk about that and they share that information. And that to me has been really, really helpful, because a lot of content creators on YouTube will give good information, but these guys here, to me, they're giving, personal information, because this pertains to money. A lot of the times people are guarded. Like the industry that I'm stepping away from for at least a while is basically an industry where you don't really talk about your hourly rate because you negotiate for it. And someone who is more experienced might say, this is my rate, but then some younger kid who's nowhere near experienced might have a better sales pitch that gets them a higher rate. So is that fair? Not really. I mean, unless you say, well, they have the skills for negotiating. But anyway. So anyway, Reginald was very cool. He was very chill, just answered my questions and my mom's questions. And when we asked stuff that he didn't know, he was like, let me find out. He'd pick up his phone and make a phone call. And then he'd find out the answer. A couple of times he'd make a phone call and then say, let me see. Well, actually, maybe this filing cabinet back there. Like, for example, I know that a lot of the jobs that I've seen offered online even for new recent grads, as it calls it, they advertise. Companies are advertising that their fleet is 2 years or earlier trucks. So I wanted to know what kind of trucks would I be learning on? Because if it's going to be all like 20-year-old trucks, then there's probably newer safety features I would need to be aware of. I wanted to know also about continued education on the instructors. Are these basically just guys that they just decide to retire from trucking and they decide to start teaching because, they know this stuff? Or is it actually a curriculum? And they said, oh no, we have this down to a science. It's a curriculum. And all of their teachers are certified the state. Also, one thing that they didn't list on their website was whether they're accredited. There's another school in town that advertises that they're accredited. And so I said, are you? And he says, oh yeah. And it was like a matter of fact thing. Like he's like, oh yeah, we are. But it sounds kind of ridiculous, but then many people, if they don't see it, that's a selling point on another, rival company's website. So it makes you wonder if that's actually a thing. Sure it is. So it's not just we're accredited, but every school really actually is, or maybe they're not. It's just this school is. So that's cool. But the one of the things also that I asked is a lot of the people online, when you read reviews for other places, they say you can't get someone on the phone. You tried some of the bad reviews came from people that would put down a deposit of a certain amount of money to hold their spot in the course, and then they can't get the vacation time. So they say, I need to reschedule, but no one ever calls them back and they leave a voicemail, or they don't get anybody on the phone, and they try multiple times and just no one's ever answering. So I said to him, how do I get you on the phone? He says, well, here's the card. And he gives it to me. He says, that card is my direct number. And I'm like, really? So I can pick up this phone and call you? He said, yeah. So I did just that. I picked up my phone. I dialed the number. He turned around his monitor and says, look at it. It's ringing on the screen right now. That's you, right? And I said, yeah, it is. He mutes the ringers when when he's in a meeting with people. Now, we were scheduled for 30 minutes. My mom and me kept asking him questions for nearly 2 hours, and he could not have been nicer. He never did a hard sell. That's something that I really appreciate. When you go and you meet up with someone, we're great, we do this and we do this and we do this and we do this, and this is why, would you like to sign the dotted line? Well, why not? Why don't you want to go ahead and sign today? If you do it today, then I'll make sure that we get you in the whenever you want. Just hard sell you. Reginald didn't do that. He just basically was like, all right, so what do you think? Any other questions? And is this something that you'd be interested in? Would you, and we were, talking about it, and he's like, well, whenever you'd like to sign up, if you'd like to sign up, just let me know. And we were just like, well, geez, we'd already asked a whole bunch of questions. I found out that all the trucks in his fleet are like 2015 and newer. They do have both automatic and sticks. They don't charge more for driving a stick, which I would be learning on, because I've driven, my first car was a stick shift, and my car currently is a 6-speed. So, I love stick shifts, and in my opinion, it's you have a better connection with the vehicle. You feel like you're driving more. You feel like you have a connection with the vehicle, and you're in control. Now, I understand from listening to a lot of content creators, and this is what's really cool, is I would not have thought about this otherwise, but apparently a lot of the modern day trucks that are out there, the semi-tractor trailers, if that's what they're called, I think that's the word that, the layperson always refers to it as. But they are usually automatic because apparently the maintenance is cheaper. At least that's what I heard. To me, I would have thought automatic would be cheaper. I'm sorry, a manual would be cheaper than automatic because you don't have to worry about the transmission, especially a truck that's constantly being, driven to death all year long. That to me seems like, you're going to be beast mode, where it's going to be like constant, driven. So the thing has got to be reliable. But that's probably part of the reason why I'm just speculating here, but I'm assuming the reason why they replaced their trucks after 2 years is because by then you've worn the thing to the point where if they sell it and it's perfectly working order, it's going to break down the next like 20 or 30,000 miles. And that would probably be at the point when you'd want to sell it. And then it would go to somebody who might do local deliveries from like one grocery store to another. And every single day they might do a circuit of maybe 100 miles around the city, maybe. Or like a film industry, for example, that leaves their trucks on the sound stages and everyone works out of them all the time. Or then they might go on location or something. Or, maybe taking mail from one place to another. And it's just maybe a central hub taking mail to the outskirts of the city 20 miles away. And then they do that to a couple other local places and do circuits around through there. And they do that in the middle of the night or something like that. Maybe. I don't know. Speculation. But honestly, after looking up, and doing my research in advance, and Reginald was just really cool and down to earth. Some of the questions I was asking, we were asking, he didn't know the answer of, and he found out the answers for us. Afterwards, I was like, because one of the questions my mom asked, which was really cool, was, well, tell us about your instructors. And he says, oh, my instructors are like, I think I have the best instructor, the lead instructor in the company. And Mom said, do you have his resume? And he's like, no, but that's a good point. I should have that available to show people. And so, he pulls out a piece of paper and he writes down that note. And then I had a few too, because one of the things I do, and I've done for years, is I break electronics. I will test them to death to find if there's a firmware update. If you press a certain combination, does it lock up? Does it seize? Does it suddenly unlock a special menu that's not listed in the manual? Things like that. And it just so happens that I saw a few things on their website that I pointed out, and he was very receptive. He took notes. Like, for example, 160drivingschool.com, I think, is the website. If you go there, you can choose your local school and find it, but it doesn't really have a tailored website to it. And so this is the school in Commerce, Georgia. So if I would like to see a commerce.160truckingschool.com. That's not the case. And so I made that suggestion, and other few little things like that are minor things, but it's cool. Like, for example, a lot of these websites I've seen use stock footage. Well, it'd be a more personal touch if they took pictures of their own yards, and they were, they had maybe a picture of their instructors, smiling. And, whenever I go to a website and there's people that say, this is our head dentist and these are the people in the office and that kind of stuff, there's a personal touch that you feel attachment. And if they are happy with their instructors and they have the best ones, shouldn't you maybe be proud of them and say, this is our instructors, and maybe have their resumes online or at least a quick write-up. So that would be the kind of thing that would be kind of cool to see. And I mentioned you might do that. And they have, and granted, this is all like other nitpicky things, but adds a little personal touch if you're looking for customer service, because I have a background in customer service. And so I mentioned a few other things there. And he was taking notes. And so it's funny because I laughed and I said, now I'm sales pitching you, hire me to do this, just a joke. No, but it's, I'll tell you this. If you're still watching this, I thank you for listening, because to me, I went into the meeting not knowing what to expect. I kind of expected if it's a 30-minute thing, I was going to get a hard sales pitch and either yes or no, and then I'm out. But it couldn't have been farther from the truth. He was very cool. What would you like to know? Have any questions? I don't know the answer. Let me look that up for you. And a lot of the questions, I don't make it seem like he didn't have any answers. He had a lot. But we asked him some questions and he was like, never been asked that before, but that's a great question. Let me find out the answer. And so he would find out the answer and come back, and he was very receptive. And so we signed up. So I signed up with him. And from there, he said, in order to start, you got to have your Georgia DOT physical done. Well, I didn't have anything for that or plan or anything. He says, just go across the street and get it done. So I had no idea what to expect, So I went across the street, went to the urgent care, and they covered that as part of their fee. And so I went and had like a vision test, and they looked at my ears and they checked me various different things. Does this hurt? Urine tests and stuff, I guess, for drug testing and stuff like that. Big long questionnaire of all kinds of things. You just fill it all out, and then I saw multiple people for multiple tests, and then it was all done. Took a couple of hours, I think, and then afterwards we went to Five Guys for some burgers. Yeah, and I tell you, there wasn't really anything bad about this whole experience, even down to the Five Guys burger. I got a regular bacon cheeseburger, and my mom accidentally didn't get a little hamburger. She got a hamburger, so it had extra patty, and she says, "You want this one?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I had like a big tall burger, so I was even happy about that. That thing filled me up really well, so didn't want to eat the rest of the day. It was pretty awesome. So yeah, optimistic. Looking forward to starting in 4 days from now, because I could have waited another week, but it's like, let's get it going, man. Let's get it going and see what happens. So next week, I'll be going for 5 days, 160 hours total, 40 hours a week. That's why it's 160 trucking school or driving school. And we're going to start in the classroom, learning what it takes to get the learner's permit. So yeah, it's going to be cool. And I'm looking forward to it. Now, what my goal is I don't know. You're seeing this right now. Because you're seeing this right now, it tells me that I'm telling a story here, that I don't know necessarily if I'm going to post these right now as I'm recording it. I'm basically recording a log. I do this periodically where I talk to myself, I get my thoughts out, and that allows me to kind of go back and look at some of my older logs and I can learn from them, and I can see what I was thinking and put things into context sometimes. And it's kind of cool to see my mindset, when I was younger. But the way I am right now is I'm optimistic, looking forward to it, looking forward to seeing what happens. I'm thinking that, the learner's permit stuff in the classroom is going to be interesting, but I'm not really thinking that's going to be nearly as fun as getting out there in the trucks and learning how what things should look like, what things should sound like, what the different things are on the inspection, and asking the different questions and getting the answers and that kind of stuff. That's going to be cool. And then getting behind the wheel and starting to really feel the machine work, and then becoming one with that, where you are an extension of the truck and the truck is an extension of you. At least that's the way I'm looking at it. Because I kind of feel that way about my car. When I get into the car like welcomes me. It's like, okay, where are we going? Almost kind of like, you come home from work and your dog greets you at the door and it's like, hey, let's have a night together. Best day ever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. And my goal is to try to record at least a little bit every single night to discuss what it is that my thoughts were and what the experience was like that day. Because I'm by no means expecting to be a master of this stuff, not going to this with any mindset of proficiency. So I'm not going to be like, well, today I learned this and this and this, expecting to kind of train you. I can't do that. And even if I tried, it wouldn't be appropriate, because you don't go to a white belt to ask them to train you in martial arts. You go to the black belts. And by no means am I even a white belt. So don't listen to me. But yeah, it's going to be neat. So expect the next time you see an entry from this, it will be after my 3rd day. And let the truth be known, I'm going to be recording all these in advance, and I'm going to be putting them up there on the internet sequentially when there's a story to be told over the course of a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. I don't know the release schedule. It could be every day. It could be skipping a few days. It may be that I start the videos and day 1 through 5 would be a Monday through Friday. And it would be as if I released it every single day after I have to figure out what I want to do. I don't want to just release like one a week, like what happens on some channels. Because I think there's a story to be told here. And I'm interested to see where this goes. So there you go.